Okay, a few weeks back when I broke my hand, I made a video where I talked about a kind of a paranormal experience or telepathic experience or spiritual experience or whatever you want to call it, where my mom had had a dream the same night that I broke my hand, and I broke it late at night. She had a dream probably a couple of hours later where she dreamt that I had broken my hand doing martial arts and that I was in a bunch of pain. And she was going to actually, the dream woke her up and had her in so much distress that she was going to phone me, see if I was okay. But it was so late at night, like 3 a.m. her time, that she decided to wait until the next day to call me. But she was pretty surprised to learn that I'd actually broken my hand doing martial arts maybe a couple hours before she had the dream. So at the time, I said that I would share some other experiences of the sort. And these kind of experiences, a lot of them involve, for me, have involved what's called telepathy. Um, Although that whole concept, um, being kind of having that distant empathy or distant sympathy for something that's going on, doesn't exactly describe some of the telepathic type of experiences that I want to talk about. In general, I kind of label these experiences as being quote unquote spiritual experiences, although even saying spiritual um, infers some things about the experiences that may or may not be true. Um, Really, what's going on is fairly unexplainable. Um, and so I don't want to try to explain it. One of the things that I should say is that for me, I think the most powerful of these kind of experiences have occurred just out of the blue. Like I haven't gone looking for them. I haven't, tried to have these kind of experiences. They just happen to me. And I think that's very different than somebody who's seeking spiritual experience, um, who's using whatever new age techniques or what have you, to try to have something special happen to them. A lot of times, then, to me, those kind of experiences, because they're so hard sought after, um, may be more explainable because they might come from that person themselves kind of forcing the experience in a way. But when something just happens out of the blue and it is very powerful, um, then I gotta wonder what's going on. And I've had several unexplainable spiritual type experiences in my life. Like I say, a lot of them being telepathy type experiences. And some of them I'm probably going to keep to myself, but there's others that I wouldn't mind talking about and putting out there, um, just on the record on my video journaling. And I did say on the video about my mom's dream that I would describe some other experiences of the sort that I've had. So today seems like a good day to put at least one of them on the record, maybe a couple. The one I'm thinking about in particular involves my wife, and today happens to be my wife's birthday. Now, I refer to my wife as Mahoney. That's not her real name, by the way. That's a name that, an endearing name that I came up with, that I've called her. Basically, it's her FBI name that I crafted. Um, when she and I were first married, we used to watch the X-Files all the time. And then later on with my work, I had to travel quite a bit. And when I travel, I'd often rent a sedan. And if she was with me, I'd kind of pretend and play like we were going out on X-File. And so she was kind of like the Scully to my Mulder. I never had an FBI name, but I always referred to her as Mahoney. That was her FBI name, and I just kept referring to her as Mahoney. Um, Changed from being something that I did during just playtime to just all the time. I refer to her as Mahoney now. So that's just what I call her. She has a lot of names actually. She has a Blackfoot name. She has a nickname. She has a first name. She has a middle name. She has an abbreviation of her middle name, and she has the nickname I gave her. And all of them are things that various people know her as. So she has a lot of names. Any case, today is her birthday, and it just got me to thinking about how she and I came to be married. And that episode involved one of these extraordinary type of experiences. So I figure, well, I'm gonna, and this was a very powerful one. I mean, it's and one of the ones that's changed the course of my life. I might not have been married had I not had this experience. And so what had happened was, at the time, this was around 1996 sometime, I was staying a lot, the way that we started seeing each other, I was staying a lot at her parents' house. I was working with her dad in repatriations, and he had invited me to stay at his place, and had invited me to get involved, participate in some of the ceremonies that he was hosting. My wife's dad is a ceremonial leader of the Kaina, or blood tribe, the Blackfoot Confederacy. And so I was over staying at the house quite a bit, and Mahoney and I, kept getting kind of thrown together by her dad, and we kind of feel like this was a prearranged thing that went on, where he was maybe putting us together for a reason. But he'd have me drive her all over the place and go do different things with her. And then when I was with him, sometimes he'd be talking about her, and you know, how he didn't like her boyfriend at the time, and who I'm now kind of friends with, not really close or anything, but we get along. There was any case, we were kind of put together, and we liked each other, but I thought she was younger than she was. I thought she was maybe like 15 or 16. Turned out she was like 19. And when I did learn that she was 19, well, then I was free to pursue her in my mind, and so I did. And we got together. How I did that is another whole story. I basically kidnapped her from school one day, but any case, we got together, and then I got a contract to work for the Hupa tribe of California on one of their repatriations. And in order to do that contract, I needed to go stay at the home of an anthropologist who had worked for the tribe for a long time, who had a lot of the materials that I needed for my research, at her home in City Island in the Bronx, New York. So I was looking at staying in City Island for a number of months while I worked on this repatriation. And so I went out there, and as part of, we were repatriating from Harvard's Peabody Museum, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So I stayed out in the Bronx for a couple of weeks, and then went to Harvard for a week, and then went to California and interviewed Hupa elders for a week, then went back to the Bronx, and I was going to be at the Bronx for a few months, kind of writing up the researching and writing up the repatriation request. And so I sent a plane ticket to Mahoney to come and visit me, because I had just had to leave Alberta when things were getting kind of hot between us, and I didn't want it to cool down. So I sent her a plane ticket to come stay with me, and so she was going to come. She was going to be there, and about a few days before she was going to be coming out there, I had a really vivid dream experience, and what happened in the dream was the kind of the way it opened was there was this guy who was chasing me with this big like bat, like a big heavy club of a stick, and I was on these kind of rolling grass fields, or hills, kind of like on the prairie, but with a little bit more roll to it. And this guy was chasing me. He wanted to kill me, but I had the ability to fly. If I ran fast enough and then kind of took off, I could fly through the air. My feet would still be moving like I was running, but I would fly and I would land on another hilltop. And then it would take him a little while to run over to that next hill to pursue me further. And so this is what was going on. He was almost catching me, and then I'd fly to another hilltop. Then he'd almost catch me, fly to another hilltop, and so on. And then in the distance, I noticed there was this mountain, and on the mountain there was a forest on the slope of the mountain. And I thought, if I fly up into the forest, he'll never be able to find me. I can disappear in the forest easy. So that's what I did. I flew up, and I landed in the forest on the side of the mountain. And as soon as I landed in that, like went into the trees, it became like dark like night. And it was almost pitch black, in fact. But I could see that there was kind of this tunnel that I was in where I landed. And I think it was something like maybe an old logging road or something like that. And I could just, dimly see that it was clear ahead, that there was a path laid out for me. And the trees were, kind of formed a tunnel of sort over this path. And so I started following up that way, walking up the path, walking up this road in the dark. And then I came like face to face suddenly, very, very close, because it was so dark I couldn't see until I was right up on it, with what I can only describe as a spirit being. I came across this spirit being. It was humanesque, but it wasn't human. And it looked very much like what people describe aliens a lot of times to look like, with the little slit of nostrils and no real, maybe a little slit of a mouth, and big almond eyes, and just skin, but no hair or anything like this. Nothing for ears really. And so I came across this, and I didn't think of it that this being as an alien at all. As soon as I encountered it, I thought of it as some kind of spirit. And what I kind of think is that what your cultural training is will determine what you interpret these kind of encounters to be. So some people interpret these beings as aliens. I didn't interpret it that way. I interpret it as a spirit. And this spirit started talking to me in my mind with that kind of like telepathy type of a thing. Like, it wasn't moving its mouth and using words like I'm using, but the words were very clear, came through in my mind like a powerful thought. And what the spirit told me was that man who had the club, who was chasing me because he was very angry because I had thrown somebody away, who was dear to him. And what had happened was, actually, I knew what she was referring to right away, which is that I had just left a 4-year relationship with a woman, who I lived with in Boston, and she told me, again, not in words, but like as a powerful thought in my mind that I knew was coming from her. And I'm saying her because I started right away to have the impression that this spirit being was a she. And she said to me, "You meet you meet many people in your life, and when there's a special bond between you and another person, it's because you were meant to meet each other. You're you have a connection with these people that such that you're meant to meet them and have them in your life. And all of your life, you've thrown people away that you were supposed to be in life with. That this is why you were brought together. That you have a connection with. That you've always had a connection with. And these people are supposed to be in your life, and when you felt like you've outgrown them or whatever, you've thrown them away. And this includes male friends and women who I've had some kind of relationships with, and these kind of things. A lot of people up until that point, and this is around about the time I'm like 24 years old, maybe 23, maybe. People that I met in my life, when I went on my way, I never looked back. I never talked to them again. It was done. And so this is what she said had happened in this instance. I had thrown another person away who was special, who I was supposed to, who I was connected with at that spiritual level. And that's why this man was angry. This was somebody who that person was dear to. And since I had hurt that person, he was going to hurt me. And she told me, now you've met another person who you are connected with, who you're strongly connected with, who you're supposed to have in your life. If you throw this person away, this will be the last person you'll ever meet, male or female, who you're supposed to meet in this life. And it made a powerful impression on me when she told me this. This was basically like an ultimatum. Like, this is your last chance. You throw this person away, and the rest of your life, you're never going to have a spiritual connection with anyone. So, and then she revealed herself to me. And I was looking at her, and she suddenly became very beautiful to me. And I was looking deeply into her face, and I could suddenly see in her all women, like that she was actually all women who had ever been, who would ever be, of all ages, of all ethnicities. She was like the archetypal woman. And that's where the dream ended for me, and I woke up, and it was a powerful, very powerful dream. It was very vivid, and and so I hung on to it. And a few days later, Mahoney came to visit me in City Island, and one night, a few days into her visit, we were up late. And that dream was playing on me. um, for whatever reason, the dream was in my mind, and Mahoney was talking to me. This was very late at night. Mahoney was talking to me. She was telling me something, but I wasn't even listening. I was just thinking about the dream. And I thought to myself about how that woman's spirit had told me that if I throw this person away, then I'll never have a spiritual connection with anybody else again in this life. And so I thought to myself, at that moment I thought, I'm going to marry her. I'm going to marry Mahoney. And as soon as I had that thought, Mahoney stopped talking. And she looked up at me and she said, "Are you serious?" And I hadn't said anything. This was just in my mind that I was thinking about the dream, and I thought, I'm going to marry her. I hadn't said a thing. But she heard me say, "Will you marry me?" And so she said, "Are you serious?" And I played along, and I said, "Yes." And she said, "When?" And I said, "Well, let's just do it like tomorrow." And so the next day, we got the ball rolling. Turned out you couldn't get married in one day in New York. There was stuff you had to do. You had to go to City Hall and get a marriage license, and then had to set it up with somebody to perform the marriage and all that thing. But we got married within a few days of this event, and and as far as I'm concerned, I never verbally said a thing to her when that thought was playing in my mind, when I was thinking of the dream and I thought, I'm going to marry her. I never asked her, but she heard me, like as if I was talking right to her, ask her to marry me. So that was a very unexplained experience. I mean, unless you want to think that I was so scared to ask her something that I repressed my knowledge of me asking. But I actually had no fear or anything like that evening. There was nothing. All I knew was that I was really in love with this girl, and I had had this very powerful dream, and it told me that this girl was connected to me, and that she was gonna be in my life forever, or if I threw her away, then I would basically go through life as a person with kind of like empty, because I would have no other spiritual connections with any other people that I ever met. So Mahoney and I got married. We eloped in New York City, and came home to Alberta, a married couple. So that was one of my really powerful telepathic type spiritual experiences, and I wanted to put that on the record. And also, especially not especially, but I do want to highlight that to me, that spirit being who came to me in my dream, even though she looked every bit like what people describe as alien, again, I think the only reason people have that description of these spirit beings is because that's what they've been taught to interpret them as. Even though the whole alien thing was not foreign to me at all, my interpretation was that this was a spirit being. And sometime afterwards, I came across a pictograph depicting the moon, and that pictograph reminded me very much of this. It was basically a stick character of a woman that showed breasts, and she was in a kind of a she was in the inside of a crescent that made it look like she was in a tunnel, but it was a crescent. It was the moon's crescent, and so this was a pictograph depiction of the moon. And in Blackfoot terms,